What happens when a country music superstar gets ambushed on live television? In just 43 seconds, Blake Shelton went from friendly guest to absolutely furious, storming off the set of The View after Whoopi Goldberg and Behar pushed him way too far. What started as a friendly chat turned into one of the most explosive confrontations ever captured on daytime television, with accusations flying, voices raised, and Blake finally saying enough is enough. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the truth behind the fake smiles. You won't want to miss what happens next. Last night's episode of The View was supposed to be just another celebrity appearance. Blake Shelton, the country music legend and former coach on The Voice, walked onto that stage with his usual laid-back charm and that signature Oklahoma smile. The audience clapped and cheered as he made his way to the panel, shaking hands with the hosts and settling into his seat. Whoopi Goldberg smiled at him from her spot at the table. Behar gave him a little wave, and everything seemed perfectly normal. Blake looked relaxed in his jeans and button-up shirt, ready to talk about his new music and maybe share some funny stories from his time on The Voice. The conversation started off smooth enough. Whoopi asked Blake about his latest album, and he lit up talking about the songs he'd written and the stories behind them. He made the audience laugh with a story about recording one of the tracks in his home studio while his dogs kept barking in the background. Joy chimed in with a question about whether he missed being on The Voice, and Blake gave an honest answer about how it was time for him to focus on making music again and spending more time at his ranch in Oklahoma. Everything was going just fine. Blake was being his usual funny, charming self. The audience was eating it up. He talked about his life, about working on his ranch, about writing songs. He even made fun of himself a little bit, which people always love. Whoopi and Joy were smiling, nodding along, and it really did seem like it was going to be a great interview. But then something shifted. You could feel it in the air, like when storm clouds roll in out of nowhere. Behar leaned forward in her chair, and her smile changed just a little bit. It wasn't the friendly smile from before. This one had something else behind it. "So Blake," Joy said, her voice taking on a different tone, "I want to ask you about something that's been on a lot of people's minds. You're from Oklahoma, right? Deep red state, conservative values, all of that?" Blake nodded slowly, and you could see his expression change just slightly. His smile got a little smaller. "Yeah, born and raised. Proud of where I'm from." Right, Joy continued, glancing at Whoopi before looking back at Blake. "So you must have some pretty strong opinions about what's happening in this country. The political divide, the way some people in rural America think about certain issues." Blake shifted in his seat. "Well, I try to stay out of politics mostly. I'm a musician, you know? I just want to make music that people enjoy." Whoopi jumped in then, and her voice had that edge to it that anyone who watches The View knows all too well. "But Blake, you can't really stay out of it, can you? When you're from where you're from, when you represent a certain part of America, your silence speaks volumes." The audience got quiet. Blake's jaw tightened just a little bit. "I'm not sure what you're getting at, Whoopi." "What we're getting at," Joy said, not backing down even a little, "is that artists have a responsibility. You have millions of fans, Blake. Young people look up to you. And when someone with your platform doesn't speak out about injustice, about the problems we're facing, it sends a message." Blake took a deep breath. You could see him trying to keep his cool. "Look, I respect that everyone has their own opinions. That's what's great about this country. But I've always believed that my job is to bring people together with music, not divide them with politics." "Bring people together," Whoopi said, and she actually laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. It was the kind of laugh that cuts. "Blake, do you know what's happening in states like Oklahoma right now? The laws being passed, the rights being taken away?" Blake's face was getting red now. "I know what's happening in my home state, yeah. And I also know that there are good people there who might not agree with you on everything. But that doesn't make them bad people." Joy wasn't letting this go. She leaned in even more. "But Blake, when you stay silent while certain communities are being targeted, while women's rights are being stripped away, while LGBTQ people are being discriminated against, your silence is complicity. You do understand that, right?" The tension in the room was thick now. You could have cut it with a knife. Blake sat up straighter in his chair. Now hold on just a minute. You're putting words in my mouth and making assumptions about what I believe based on where I'm from. That's not fair, and honestly, it's pretty damn offensive. Whoopi raised her eyebrows. Offensive? What's offensive is having the privilege to stay quiet while other people suffer. Privilege? Blake's voice was getting louder now. You want to talk to me about privilege? I grew up in Ada, Oklahoma, in a town of 6,000 people. My dad worked construction. My mom worked in a beauty salon. I didn't grow up with privilege, Whoopi. I grew up working my ass off for everything I got. Economic privilege and social privilege are two different things, Blake. Joy shot back. You're a straight white man in country music. That's privilege whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Blake shook his head, and you could see he was really getting angry now. His face was flushed. His hands were gripping the arms of his chair. You know what? I came on this show to talk about my music. To have a good conversation. But instead, you're sitting here attacking me. Attacking where I'm from. Making assumptions about who I am and what I believe. You don't know me. We know enough, Whoopi said, her voice cold. We know that you've been asked before about these issues, and you dodge the questions. We know that you play it safe so you don't lose fans from either side. That's calculated, Blake. That's choosing money over morals. That hit a nerve. Blake stood up from his chair, and everyone in the audience gasped. Choosing money over morals? Are you kidding me right now? I don't talk about politics because I genuinely believe that music should be something that brings people together, not tears them apart. I have fans who voted for Trump, and I have fans who voted for Biden, and I have fans who didn't vote at all, and I love all of them. That's not being calculated. That's being a decent human being who doesn't think everyone who disagrees with me is evil. Joy stood up too now. But Blake, when you refuse to condemn bigotry, when you refuse to stand up for marginalized communities, you're saying that your comfort is more important than their safety. I never said I don't stand up for people. Blake's voice echoed through the studio. I've never been hateful toward anyone. I've never discriminated against anyone. I treat everyone with respect. But apparently that's not good enough for you because I won't get on social media and perform my beliefs for you like some kind of trained monkey. The audience was dead silent now. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. This had gone way past a normal interview. This was a full-blown fight happening on live television. Whoopi wasn't backing down, though. It's not about performing, Blake. It's about using your voice for good. It's about recognizing that when you have a platform, you have a responsibility. A responsibility to who? Blake fired back. To you? To people on Twitter? I have a responsibility to be a good person, to treat people right, to be there for my family and friends. I don't have a responsibility to broadcast every political opinion I have just to make you feel better about me. Joy jumped back in, her voice sharp. So you admit you have political opinions, you just won't share them. That's cowardice, Blake. And that was it. That was the moment everything exploded. Blake's face went from red to almost purple. His eyes were blazing. Cowardice? His voice was shaking with anger now. You want to call me a coward? You sit up here in your studio in New York City, in your bubble, surrounded by people who think exactly like you, and you call anyone who doesn't fall in line a coward? That takes some nerve, Joy. We're not in a bubble, Whoopi snapped. We're in reality. The reality where people are suffering because of policies and attitudes that people like you enable with your silence. People like me? Blake was almost yelling now. You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I do in my personal life, who I help, what causes I support quietly, without needing a pat on the back for it. You just assume because I'm from Oklahoma and I sing country music, that I must be some backwards bigot. That's prejudice, Whoopi. That's stereotyping. And it's exactly what you claim to be against. The other hosts at the table looked uncomfortable, unsure of whether to jump in or stay quiet. The producers were probably losing their minds in the control room. This was spiraling completely out of control. Joy wasn't done, though. If you support causes quietly, then they don't help change minds, Blake. Visibility matters. Representation matters. When someone like you speaks out, it reaches people who might not listen to activists or politicians. Maybe I don't want to be a politician. Blake shouted. Maybe I just want to be an artist. Is that so wrong? Why does everyone have to be an activist now? Why can't someone just make music and live their life without being forced to pick a side in every single issue? Because there are no sides when it comes to human rights, Whoopi said, her voice hard. There's right and there's wrong. And sitting on the fence while people are being hurt is choosing wrong. Blake threw his hands up in the air. I'm not sitting on the fence. I just don't believe that having the same political opinions as you is the only way to be a good person. There are plenty of people in Oklahoma, in Tennessee, in Texas, all over this country, who have conservative values but who are also kind, loving, generous people. They volunteer in their communities, they help their neighbors, they give to charity. But because they don't vote the way you want them to, you write them all off as evil. That's not fair, and it's not right. Conservative values are being used to strip away rights, Joy countered, her voice rising to match his. So yes, Blake, if someone votes for politicians who want to take away women's reproductive freedom, who want to discriminate against LGBTQ people, who want to make it harder for people to vote, then I'm going to question their character. That's not unfair. That's common sense. See? This is exactly the problem. Blake was pacing now too, worked up to sit still. You're lumping everyone together. You're saying that anyone who doesn't agree with you 100% on every single issue is a terrible person. That's not how the world works. People are complicated. They have different reasons for believing what they believe. And maybe, just maybe, if people like you would actually listen to them instead of talking down to them, you might understand where they're coming from. Whoopi leaned forward, her eyes locked on Blake. I don't need to understand where bigotry comes from, Blake. I need people to stand against it, and you're not doing that. Blake stopped pacing and stared at her. You're calling me a bigot now? Is that what this is? If the shoe fits, Joy muttered. But it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Blake's mouth dropped open. He looked genuinely shocked. For a second, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at both of them. Then he shook his head slowly. Unbelievable, he said quietly, but his voice was filled with anger. You invited me here. You asked me to come on your show. And now you're sitting here calling me a bigot on live television because I won't perform my political beliefs for you. Because I believe in treating people as individuals instead of putting them in boxes based on where they're from or what they believe. We're calling out what we see, Whoopi said firmly. And what we see is someone who has a massive platform and refuses to use it for good because he's afraid of losing fans and money. You have no idea what you're talking about, Blake said, and now his voice was shaking with pure rage. You don't know me. You don't know my heart. You don't know what I care about or what I stand for. You just made up your mind about me before I even walked out here, didn't you? This whole thing was a setup. You brought me on here to ambush me, to try to make me look bad, because I don't fit into your neat little box of what you think a good person should be. That's not true, Joy started to say. But Blake cut her off. Yes, it is. You know what? I should have known better. Everyone warned me about coming on this show. They said you guys have an agenda, that you don't actually want to have conversations. You just want to lecture people and make them feel small if they don't agree with you. And I defended you. I said no, I think they're just passionate about what they believe in. But I was wrong. This isn't passion. This is bullying. The audience gasped again. Some people started murmuring to each other. This was getting worse by the second. Whoopi stood up from her chair now too. Bullying? We're bullies for asking you to take a stand on important issues? You're bullies for attacking me, for calling me a coward and a bigot, for assuming the worst about me based on nothing but your own prejudices, Blake shot back. You sit up here every day acting like you're better than everyone else, like you have all the answers, like anyone who doesn't think exactly like you is stupid or evil. Well, guess what? That attitude is exactly why this country is so divided. It's people like you who make it impossible to have real conversations. Joy stood up too, and now all three of them were standing, facing each other across the table. People like us? We're trying to make this country better, Blake. We're fighting for justice, for equality, for the people who don't have a voice. By attacking people who don't fall in line? Blake shouted. By calling them names? By making them feel like they're terrible people if they have a different opinion? That's not fighting for justice, Joy. That's being self-righteous and judgmental. We have every right to judge people who stay silent in the face of injustice, Whoopi said, her voice booming across the studio. Every single right. And I have every right to live my life the way I see fit without being called a bigot by two people who don't know anything about me. Blake's voice was just as loud now. You know what? I'm done. I don't have to stand here and take this. He started to walk toward the edge of the stage, but Joy called after him. Where are you going, Blake? Can't handle being challenged? Blake spun around, and the look on his face was pure fury. Challenged? Is that what you think this is? This isn't a challenge. This is an attack. You didn't bring me here to have a conversation. You brought me here to tear me down because you think you're better than me. Because you think everyone from Oklahoma must be some backwards hick who needs to be educated by the enlightened coastal elites. That's not what this is about, Whoopi said. But even she sounded less sure now. That's exactly what this is about, Blake yelled. You look down on people like me. People from small towns. People who didn't grow up in New York or LA. People who go to church on Sundays and believe in God and have traditional values. You think we're all stupid. You think we're all bigots. You think we're all the problem with America. Well, I've got news for you. We're not. We're just people trying to live our lives, raise our families, and be good to each other. And we're tired of being told we're not good enough by people who don't even know us. The silence that followed was deafening. Blake stood there, breathing hard, his face still red with anger. Whoopi and Joy stood on the other side of the table, both of them looking like they wanted to say something but weren't quite sure what. The audience didn't make a sound. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this incredible confrontation. Finally, Blake spoke again, and his voice was quieter now but still filled with emotion. I came here today in good faith. I thought we could have a nice conversation. I thought maybe we could find some common ground, show people that it's possible to disagree without being disagreeable. But you made that impossible. You wanted a fight, and you got one. I hope you're happy. Blake, if you would just listen, Joy started. But Blake held up his hand. No, I'm done listening. I've listened to you call me a coward. I've listened to you call me a bigot. I've listened to you insult where I'm from and the people I love. I don't need to listen anymore. What I need to do is get the hell out of here. He turned and started walking toward the exit. Whoopi called after him one more time. Blake, we're not done here. Blake stopped and turned around one last time. Yes, we are. We're very done. You can't treat people like this and expect them to just take it. I don't care how big your platform is. I don't care how many people watch this show. You don't get to talk to me like I'm garbage just because I won't play your game. It's not a game, Whoopi said. And now she sounded angry too. These are people's lives we're talking about. And my life matters too, Blake said, his voice breaking just a little bit. My feelings matter too. My beliefs matter too, even if they don't line up perfectly with yours. But you don't see it that way. To you, I'm just another target. Another celebrity you can shame into submission. Well, it's not going to work. I'm not ashamed of who I am or where I'm from or what I believe, and I'm sure as hell not going to apologize to you. With that, he turned and walked straight off the stage. The audience watched in complete shock as Blake Shelton, one of the biggest names in country music, stormed out of the View studio. His footsteps echoed as he walked past the cameras, past the crew members who stood frozen with their mouths open, past the producers who were frantically trying to figure out what to do. Whoopi and Joy stood at the table, both of them looking stunned. This had clearly gone further than even they expected. The other hosts still didn't know what to say. The audience remained silent, processing what they had just witnessed. And Blake just kept walking. He didn't look back. He didn't hesitate. He pushed through the door at the back of the studio and was gone, leaving behind one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed through the studio, and then there was nothing but stunned silence. The cameras were still rolling, capturing the shocked faces of the hosts and the disbelief rippling through the audience. This was supposed to be a simple celebrity interview, but it had turned into something much bigger. It had become a symbol of the divide that's tearing this country apart, of how impossible it seems to have real conversations anymore, of how quickly things can spiral out of control when people refuse to see each other as human beings first. Blake Shelton walked off the View set that day, and he didn't come back. The door closed behind him with a final, definitive bang, that said everything that needed to be said. He was done. And from the look on his face as he left, he meant it.